Hello, everyone. So I'm here today with China Brooks. Welcome back to the channel, China Brooks. It's great to have you here once again.
Yeah, great to be here.
And today we're going to talk about magical tools. Now, we both have our own magical tools that we'd like to briefly discuss in this video, and we're actually going to make more videos where we talk about more specifics. But just starting off, are there maybe one or two magical tools that you'd like to describe that are in your ensemble of things that you use for spiritual practices, China?
Yes, absolutely. And well, you were talking about before we were recording a lot of wonderful tools that I use as well. So I'll let you just go through that list. I brought a couple of tools that I like to use, and one is this. This is my Ankh, and it's basically used as a broadcasting system. It's copper with pneumite in the handle, which is very, very good for grounding, kyanite, Herkimer diamond. It's got 6 to 8 rare earth magnets in it, and that amplifies. This is basically just amplifies my intention. It amplifies my magic, and I like to use this in crystal grids, which is another tool that I'm really fond of. Some people call using crystals low magic. And so I like to, if we want to call it low magic, I like to mix low magic and high magic. So doing crystal grids, charging them with intention. I have this, which is a little bracelet that has, this is a Lumerian pointer crystal. So this points me in the right direction towards the divine.
Is
And
that worn on
then,
your wrist? Is that a wrist? Is that a wrist thing?
yes, it is.
So do you wear it throughout like your life, or is it something that you only wear during ritual?
No, I wear it throughout my life. And I also use it in ritual. Like I might place it inside of grids, or if I'm I'm doing a kind of a spell, maybe a road opener or something to point me in the correct direction. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of my my bracelet of loyalty to the gods. Kind of. I got this bronze bracelet that I wear like every day, and it's got two dragon heads on it. Some people think they're wolves. They're actually kind of dragons. And it kind of symbolizes my loyalty to the gods. And so throughout my life, I just wear this, and then it constantly brings me back to my past because you constantly have to readjust it. It might seem inconvenient, but it brings me back to my past, reminds me of the gods, and allows me to, tune back in whenever I'm feeling distant from my path, even when I'm at my job, when I'm at school, whatever. It kind of like brings you back because it's always hugging my arm. Do you think that that bracelet actually serves the same function for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. And I'm really curious about the first thing that you showed because I've never seen anything like it. Like I know what an Ankh is. I mean, like Horus carried one. It's kind of a symbol. It seems like a symbol of like resurrection, rebirth, and like focus. But how exactly do you direct that during a ritual? Like, do you hold it in your hand like this, or do you hold it up, or like how do you employ it?
There's a lot of different ways that you can use this. Uh, I so like I said, I add it into grids. I actually have an active grid. I'm staring at it right now. So I put it into crystal grids. So I put crystals around it. I use this in the center. Maybe I put candles, or incense, anything to help activate it. I also put it in the sun, which is very cleansing. You can speak through it. So if I am chanting a certain N or a deity or something, anything, or if I'm manifesting, then that I also charge it with sexual energy. So if I'm charging pentacles or sigils, I can utilize this. I can put this on top of the sigil, put blood on that. I mean, just that the uses are endless for what I can do with this. I can carry it. Sometimes when I feel like I really require protection, now I feel really great. But for a while, I just would carry it. It was an extension of my body, of my arm that I would carry around with me everywhere. And in fact, I could just slip it on like a bracelet.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's
That
meant,
makes sense.
this particular one was designed to, it was a gift, and it was designed to protect me from dark entities, negative, evil jinn, attachments, things like that, that are trying to get in the way of me doing my great work. And these can be made with all kinds of different stones. So even like rose quartz, if you want a more feminine one, but this is a straight, it's crooked because that's how much work I've done with it, you know? That's
Yeah.
how much I've used.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I actually, there's a lot of my tools that I've used so much that are kind of like bent in one way or another, and I try to like write them, but it ends up making it weaker at that point. So I'm just like, okay, this is how it
That's
is.
exactly. I'm like, it's cool. Yeah.
No,
That's
yeah,
great.
as far as how I direct energy, like an athame, I've actually experimented with multiple things. So I've experimented with a small scepter with kind of a stone in it.
Beautiful.
And I think that's a garnet. I've experimented with this a lot. I never got really attached to it though. And what I what I've used as well is this quartz kind of wand. This works very well with me. Like it just kind of channels whatever I want. It's not like it doesn't really have a lot of its own energy, but it just magnifies whatever I'm trying to do, whether it's a spell, when I'm like pointing at the divine and kind of trying to spread that energy in a circle, what have you. This one works the best. I found that even a feather for certain, when you're dealing with incense or you're dealing with woods when you're burning them, but also when you're kind of fanning them towards you and you're marking yourself with those incense with that wood, then you'll kind of bring that energy, not just the smoke, but also the smoke around your neck. You might go over your shoulder, and then you might go along your limbs with the feather along your arms as well. Um, now, my athame, which I'll talk briefly about, I've used in a similar regard. Most people like an athame that's straight, that it has a black handle and that's straight. This is a Filipino kukri dagger. Usually their kukri swords are much bigger, but this is a dagger. Most people like their athame straight because it's easier to direct, but for some reason, I found that I can direct my own energy through this quite well, even though it has a bend in it, a crooked, which you usually don't want for an athame. But these are kind of the things that I have briefly talked about, but used for directing energy. But mainly, I just use my own apparatus. I'm kind of in my own apparatus. My apparatus is my body. I'm kind of like seated in here like a little alien from Men in Black that sits in that big human. I'm not sure if you know what I'm talking about, but it's like my own body's my apparatus. So I've experimented with a lot of these things, but I think by far, well, my favorite, of course, is my Thami, but that has a variety of uses. But for just directing energy, definitely the quartz wand. That's mainly what I use this for. But do you have any other magical tools that you'd like to discuss real quick?
I do. And you know what's interesting is I'm so glad you mentioned there's a quote that I'm reading that I just read. You are the most powerful tool in your life. Use your energy, your thoughts, and your magic wisely. And that's by Dacha Ablin. So it's interesting. I love that you said that you are your greatest magical tool because that's definitely something that I completely agree with. Um, yeah, I do. I
Because
have. Oh, please go ahead.
No,
Yes,
I was going to
yes.
say because in a way, like your bones, they vibrate with the words that you say, so you can kind of direct the words that you say. Everything that you say through your voice box, it vibrates throughout your bones, and you can direct it. You might not feel it all the time, but when you're chanting a spell, chanting a mantra, you can direct that vibration through your own bones into something because that is a part of yourself. You got to realize that, and surrounding these bones is the best elixir ever that you could ever take. It's your blood. It's your sacred elixir that surrounds these bones and makes it easier for you to direct that energy. So you have the bones which can vibrate with your voice box, and then you have your sacred elixir which is also vibrating, and it's closer to the membrane with which you interact with the world, which is your skin. So every single layer of yourself can direct energy. You just have to understand the different uses for every single layer, and then you realize how much potential you have just within your own body.
So much potential. The cells are programmable, and so are neural pathways in the brain. And, the brain doesn't know the difference between what we visualize and imagine and what was really happening in reality. And, the cells, like I said, like matter, um, sound changes matter and it programs matter. And so that's exactly what you're talking about with the bones and what I'm talking about with the cells. And there's the concept of neuroplasticity, in the brain, which can in large part be achieved through meditation. And once that happens, when the magician opens up in that capacity, then the magic, I believe, is has the potential to be infinite, with infinite possibilities. So.
When it comes to neuroplasticity, I mean, I agree with all of that, but when it comes to neuroplasticity, the brain can actually grow, I think, 1 cubic centimeter every year if you meditate every day. So, like, you have to look at studies and stuff, but it seems like the brain can literally grow with meditation. So it's not necessarily that the brain matter itself is reproducing more brain matter. It's that there's a certain expansion of neurons that kind of like push everything out and make everything more connected, because a lot of the time our brains get so confined and small because all these things are squished together. The neurons aren't really communicating. A lot of the synapses are crooked. And then, but as the brain opens up and like has definite pathways, then, it can literally, the thing about the skull is that it actually can expand. If the brain expands slowly, the skull can expand slowly.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it literally grows your brain, as far as recent studies have shown. So when it comes to drawing magical circles, do you use things like this, or casting spells? Do you use things like this, or do you use chants? Do you use mantras? Is there anything you like to talk about as far as verbal tools in the magical process?
Well, you were asking me, do I use things like this, and what do you mean? Things like what exactly? This kind of stuff, or?
Yeah, you said the ankh, and then you talked
Uh-huh.
about your bracelet just now. But I was wondering if we can expand the idea of a tool into
Yeah.
verbal tools, like a mantra,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a certain incantation.
Hmm.
Would you like to talk about the power of those even ideological tools that become reality?
Absolutely. Well, I use it all. I mean, I use the ankh, I use the incense, like you're saying. I use, I have these black obsidian, actually some dragon glass in Game of Thrones. But I had it before, and I have two of them. They're shard, and one of them is very sharp. They're both pretty sharp, but one of them is very sharp, and I use those to do like psychic surgery and in my grids. And I use sound all the time, probably just about every day. Some kind of incantation or decree, or a demonic divine N, or chants, mantras, even repeating a word or a phrase in my head over and over again. Like if I'm just repeating Nam-myoho Renge-kyo or the Lotus Sutra in my mind as I'm even just walking to the grocery store, or
Hmm.
anything like that. I use them, yes. I use it all, literally, when I do a circle. I kind of just sometimes, it's like a big pot, and I'm like, I just put a bunch of ingredients in there, and it just like works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the book UD Frater Sigil Magic, you can actually look it up on Amazon for anybody interested. It kind of tells you how to make both sigils, which I've made many sigil videos, including the blood magic sigil video. But there's also ways to make verbal sigils. So you combine the same ideas, but the end result is basically producing a sort of mantra that you say over and over again, where you kind of not dilute the ideas, but the ideas become less literally tangible to you. And then once they become to that form, you can say them and you can focus on that, and then that creates something. So when you're using a mantra, when you're using a spell incantation, I use, for instance, to kind of expel the profane, hecas hecas este bebeloi, which is very much connected to kind of Latin, but also hecate. It basically means away, away, all ye profane. So the way I use my voice box plus my bones plus if I cut myself, then I cast blood on the either ground or paper or the stone. It's all a tool to basically cast this energy out and manipulate the reality that I find myself in. So, but there's multiple connections. So you got yeah.
Yeah.
So you
So
use that to cast it out. So like,
yeah.
I think that as far as the idea of a tool, I think we have to kind of expand our idea of what a tool is,
Great.
because we usually just think of like okay, this is a tool. It's separate from me, and I caster this, which is very effective as well. But the person that you are can be a tool. Your identity can even be a tool. You can kind of twist how people see you and kind of experiment with different personalities in order to affect your reality. And they can kind of become your own personal servitors in a way. These different personalities in your head. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I think when it comes down to tools, we just have to expand our idea of what a tool is. But the human mind and the human body is definitely a key to using any tool for any purpose. So even if you're using something like just a regular wooden stick, somebody who's a master at using themselves can make that stick and you do
Oh,
anything.
there's so many things you can do with that
Yeah,
stick.
just
Yeah.
with a stick. And so it's really about the tool wielder and not the tool itself. Um,
Yes.
is there anything else you want to say about tools? I feel like, this is, of course, just an introductory video to the tools we're going to talk about in the future. So we're
Okay.
just kind of barely touching on some things, and I kind of want to expand on them in the future. But is there, I've talked about how I use, for instance, a shell to burn white sage, organic white sage, or Santo Palo Santo. I get those two words mixed up. Or I'll burn something like lemongrass, or I'll burn mugwort, and then I'll waft it with a feather and kind of like bless myself with it on my different limbs and around my body. And of course, use the wood itself and the dragon's blood. Is there anything that's like a substance that you burn that you use on a regular basis?
Well, I use a lot of incense
What
also.
are your
Uh,
favorite?
oh, well, I I like the earthy incense, sometimes rose. However, the incense that I have lots of different kinds, and basically what I keep the incense that my patron spirits love, and that's mostly what I have. I also love essential oils, and I make spritzers out of them, and I like to spray the area to cleanse it. Maybe I might use cedar or again rose or orange or clove is really great if in baths. It's very grounding. So if you just take some clove oil and put that in, that's really great for ritual baths as well to really ground ourselves into Malkuth, the earth.
Do you
So
ever
yeah.
use Florida water?
No, I've heard of it, of course, and I haven't been called to yet. Maybe at some point I might.
Yeah. The funny thing is, the Florida water we can buy on Amazon, which you just type in Florida water, you can find it. It's very diluted, but it still works. But there are actual magical practitioners who do it for a living. They make, potent Florida water. And I've been waiting to get my hands on some of that stuff, but I haven't found the right source yet. But it's interesting because I also use oils, and I use there's anointing oils, and I have oils that are like a combination of sandalwood, myrrh, rose, or I might have some frankincense in there, or eucalyptus, yeah, eucalyptus.
Eucalyptus.
There we go, there we go. And then I might have some sage oil. And then I get the store that I go to. I'll get different combinations of these things for different purposes. So if I want to clear my room or like my house, then I might get something that's a combination of some very pungent, very strong oils in a combination about a 4 dram container. And then I might mix that with water, and I might fling it around with my fingers. Once again, using yourself as a magical tool. Maybe with some rose petals in there. But there's a number of oils out there for many different spiritual purposes. And I think somebody's really missing out if they don't really take advantage of all the essential oils that we have at our disposal, especially on Amazon, because we can order anything on Amazon now. So it's very easy to get a hold of these items. So in closing, is there anything you want to say about magical tools?
Um, No, I guess I'm just looking forward to doing more because I'm sitting with two other tools here that we didn't even mention. So we've got lots to talk about in other videos. And I
Yeah.
think the main thing is what you touched on. We're definitely in agreement that the greatest magical tool is the self. I mean, the
Hmm.
self, we're electrical beings, and we are biological. We have so much biological property, including, sexual fluids and blood and the vibration and intonation. Even when I find that intonation of when I'm chanting or saying words like Tarana Kara Tana, if I'm going to do it, deep in the root, it really has a huge impact. So, and that's done with just the voice and the body, so much can be done in magic without all of these external tools. You know, for a magician who is just starting, or has certain kind of resources, they're saving money or whatever, so much can be done just with a person, even going outside and gathering flora and fauna. Asking, if a tree might grab your attention and say, hey, take some of my bark, or some flowers or some rosemary may offer itself, for a part of ritual and ceremony. There's just so much even out in nature. I have some river water from my river, because rivers they act as portals, because water is very conductive energetically. So there's just, honestly, there's magical tools everywhere.
Yep.
Like
That's
everywhere.
definitely true.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. Hey, so I'm really looking forward to making more of these videos with you, China Brooks. I thank you very much for coming to my channel, and I assume you're going to put it on your channel as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's good collaborating with you. We'll continue to talk after the video ends. But hey, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anybody out there watching, feel free to shoot it down in the comment section below on YouTube. I'd be more than happy to take a look at them, and I'm sure she'd like to take a look at your comments as well. So thank you very much for watching. Hope to see all of you on the channel in the future.